Hey, what's going on everyone? In this video, we'll be doing a review of the Sony DSC-HX20V camera as well as the Sony DSC-HX30V. However, you'll notice I'm only holding one of two cameras, and here's why. I have used both the HX20 and the HX30, and let me just say they're the exact same thing. Specs, body design, everything is exactly the same except for one key element. The HX30 is capable of Wi-Fi capability. So it basically means with the HX30 you can transfer files wirelessly between computer and camera, whereas the HX20 cannot. So this review, like I said, is based for both cameras because they're exactly identical except the HX30 has built-in Wi-Fi, the HX20 does not. So every feature I mentioned is for both cameras. Out of the box you get the camera itself, one battery, a micro USB cord which is roughly 2 feet long. One end has a regular USB port for plugging into a computer or the DC charger which is included in the box, and of course the other side is used to plug into the camera, and memory cards and HDMI wires are sold separately. So both cameras are 18.2 megapixels. They have an XMOR CMOS sensor. They are capable of 20x optical zoom for picture and video, which is a lot. However, for picture taking only, if you want to go beyond 20x optical zoom, you can reach a whopping maximum 40x digital zoom. Now, if you want to see some sample pictures and videos recorded and taken during bright light and low light situations with this camera, I will include a link to that video in the description below, or you can wait for that link at the end of this video, in an annotation link. In that sample video on YouTube, I will include a link in that video description in which you can download an original file recorded with this camera. So that file will not be unaltered, it'll be uploaded directly to a link and you guys can download the original file. Believe me, it's worth checking out because this camera records at 60 frames per second. You'll be in for a treat. But let's continue with the review. It has a extra fine, according to Sony, 3-inch LCD screen at the back. It's not touch, all user commands are input through buttons. It has a Sony Lens G up here. Over on the left, you have a speaker which outputs sound when you're playing back videos on this camera. It has a flash, which I'll demonstrate just in a moment. 2 stereo microphone inputs for recording video, on-off button, zoom in and out, picture taking button, various modes for video recording, picture taking modes, micro HDMI port, which is hidden, a latch which conceals the memory card and battery, USB port, tripod holder, and as for the body itself, it's really comfortable because you have this rubber thumb spot right at the back, and at the front you have this nice grip for the rest of your hand which is also rubber, so the camera to hold is extremely comfortable. Okay, so as mentioned, I want to demonstrate the flash for you guys. So there, it just popped up. What I don't like about this is that I wish that the Sony logo was somewhere here, and if Sony really wanted to, I bet they could have had the flash in here because it's taking up that much space in the body anyway. And the reason I don't like it is because usually when you hold a camera, you're like this. So if the flash has to pop up, it'll push your finger out of the way, or if you're holding it a little bit tight, you might cause the flash to not pop up at all, which is not good for the camera. You have a dedicated movie recording button. You can play back pictures and videos taken with this camera here. This swivel here, basically on the right side, if you press it, activates flash on and off. Up is display, you can change the settings. On the left, depending on which mode you're in, you can have a self-timer or burst picture taking mode. The bottom is also dependent on which type of mode you're here. It allows you to set, brightness, colors, adjustments, like vividness, and some different options here in which you can say like make only yellow colors pop. See that function here? It'll make everything in your screen black and white, whereas only yellow will pop. So it's a pretty neat feature to have. Of course, you have a in-camera guide in case you don't want to carry it around and you forget something. Use the in-camera guide, just pressing it like that. Now, the menu is strictly dependent on which type of function you're using up here, but the generic functions is that you can adjust picture quality, brightness, low, high, face detection, video recording quality you can adjust. It records at highest quality 1920 by 1080 60p. Basically that means 1080p at 60 frames per second, and that's amazing. Cameras that cost like even $2,000 just for the body alone, even many of them cannot record at 60 frames per second for 1080p. But don't get me wrong, just because it's a lot cheaper than say a $2,000 camera doesn't mean that picture quality is bad. No. The picture quality while recording at 60 frames per second is amazing. Okay, so video recording quality is outstanding on this camera. That's why I specifically bought this model. You have a picture size you can adjust for when you can take a picture while recording a video. That's what this does. Steady is basically anti-shake mode. You have normal and high movement, so it'll try to reduce shakiness while recording a video. The HX20 and HX30 are both capable of reporting your GPS location on your files. So if you ever want to, figure out where you took them, just activate it and you can see it. And now, again, here's another option to set the camera guide. And of course, you can adjust the time, sounds, and other stuff like that. Okay, so one thing about recording videos, like I said, this is movie mode, which I just swiveled over to. And then there's a dedicated movie button. The movie button will work in any function. Even if you're taking a picture, pressing the movie button will record a video right away. So you might be wondering, what's the point of having the swivel for movie? That's basically because if you want to adjust the movie options a little bit further by going into the menu, you can do stuff like have it record videos in auto mode, or you can set the scene. Maybe it's bright outside with soft imagery, maybe your landscapes, or maybe it's nighttime and you're on a tripod. So that's basically the key element of having the movie option here at the top. It allows for more customization while recording a video. Now I can't get into every single function for video or pictures because it'll make this video about an hour long, so I apologize. But if you want more examples, which I'll be using this camera on various modes, you can check out this sample picture and video clip, which I mentioned I'll be uploading on YouTube. This camera records the videos in MTS file format, which isn't really a bad thing. It just means it's a little tricky to play. And the other thing is you cannot recharge this camera and take pictures or videos at the same time. When this camera is plugged into a computer or to the DC adapter, the only thing you can do while it's charging or plugged into anything is let it recharge or view your taken pictures or videos through here. That's all you can do. It takes about 320 images per battery according to Sony. I would say that's fairly accurate. Sometimes I average about 300 when I was just doing my random test. So it's pretty accurate. In terms of video recording, the battery on a full charge lasts between an hour to hour and 15 minutes. In my experience, I notice it differs depending if I'm zooming in a lot more or less. So an hour to hour and 15 minutes per battery charge for video recording. If you want to have continuous recording, so say you just press the movie record button, it'll record continuously for a maximum of 30 minutes and then stop. The camera doesn't turn off, it just stops. You have to press the record button again after 30 minutes. And you might be wondering why that is. That's because there's some sort of like law or rule rather, that if it hits more than 30 minutes recording continuously, it'll be classified as a camcorder, and then manufacturers like Sony, for example, will get charged more import tax and duty fees, stuff like that. So that's the reason for the limitation. However, 30 minutes is a lot. Many cameras, like say the Canon ELPH 110, which is extremely popular, they cap at like 10-minute video recording. So every 10 minutes you have to press the record button, from what I've heard and read and even used in person. So the fact that this records at 30 minutes continuously is a lot for a compact camera. Now in terms of some of the picture modes, and let's see, you have panorama mode. This is memory recall. It'll just go through some of the stuff in its memory, features that you've used. Manual allows for you to adjust the ISO, the aperture, shutter speed, stuff like that. So it allows for a lot of customization, just controlled by the swivel. So a manual mode is like if you really want those fine details, and this one will allow you to control the focus of the object you're trying to capture. Program mode doesn't allow as much controlling options as manual mode, but it has a bunch of other features. Like basically you can make your picture look like a painting, for example, if you want. You can adjust the ISO, like auto, 100, 1600, stuff like that. That's basically what program mode does. Moving along, superior auto is basically auto mode, but it takes about 2 to 3 seconds for a picture to process because it's taking pictures in automatically for you with all the preset settings, but it's taking it a really fine detail. Whereas regular auto mode is, again, it's auto mode, you don't really do anything, but it processes a lot faster at slightly lower quality. Background defocus basically focuses on images that are 30 centimeters or closer. This thing has amazing focus, and what it does is, say for this example, if it takes a picture of my finger as the focus because it's really close, it'll blur everything else in the background. So like my computer monitor, my desk, it'll blur it out in the background. So that's a neat feature for really close-up shots. Scene modes is pretty self-explanatory. The camera tries to adjust according to which type of scenery you're in, maybe soft images. If you're like say on the beach, if you're at nighttime with a tripod, you know, maybe you're on a ski resort, there's a lot of white areas with high brightness. So that's what scene mode does. That's pretty easy to understand. 3D shooting mode takes 3D pictures, but this is only useful if you have a 3D monitor or 3D TV. Video recording mode, I already told you, is more customization for video recording. And we're back to panorama mode, which is simply taking panorama pictures. So the camera itself has a lot of options. And there's one more thing I almost forgot to mention is the custom button. The custom button is basically a quick option to access, you know, a brightness, make it high or low. They didn't really have to include the custom button, but I find it useful if you want to adjust the brightness very quickly. Now this should be obvious. It's a compact camera, but I just gotta mention it. You cannot use the flash while recording a video. If you want to have more lighting in low light conditions and recording a video at nighttime perhaps, you must have an exterior flash or some sort of other light source. It's pretty common sense, but I had to mention it. Now I would really love to demonstrate all the features, but again, it would make this video like an hour long, so I had to stop it here. I just want to make sure you guys get the general idea, and I hope you did what this camera is capable of, but it's time to break down this rating. If I had to give this camera a rating, I would give it a 4 out of a 5, and here's why. The pros of the device is that it has a very quick responsive UI, but the other great thing is that it has an in-camera guide, so the user is well designed. They have a built-in camera guide, so you don't really need to lug around the extra papers for the instruction manual. Picture quality for a compact camera is good. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's pretty darn good for a compact camera. The biggest strength of this camera is in video recording. This thing has amazing video picture quality. It's like sharp. It's like watching a Blu-ray disc on a 1080p TV. It's so clear. The other perk about the video recording on this thing, it's a really rare feat, but it does it. It records in 60 frames per second. Now, if you were to watch that clip, which I upload on YouTube, you might not like it at first. It'll look too fast-forwarded perhaps, or it'll look too smooth. But believe me, when I watch home videos that are maybe like 10 minutes straight, after a while my brain gets used to it, and when I watch TV, because TV shows and movies are played back in 24 or 30 frames per second, whereas 60 frames per second, which this camera records, is more closer to real-life motion. Believe me, when you get used to it, if you're watching it for like 5 minutes or more, you're not going to like regular TV or movie playback. You're going to find it too slow. There are many picture modes to choose from, a lot. You got like all the swivel adjustments here. Program mode allows for even, you know, making your picture look like a painting or black and white, stuff like that. There are a lot of picture options built into this camera. The other thing is that for a compact camera, this thing has fantastic zoom, 20x optical and 40x digital when taking pictures only. That's a lot of zoom for such a compact camera. Now the fact that it has 40x digital zoom, people don't like digital because it's literally zooming in on the digital picture. Personally, I find that as a bonus. Sony didn't have to include it because it's software based, but they did. So I personally find that as another pro. If you really need it, the option is there. And lastly, the final pro is that this records in 30 minutes continuously. As mentioned, other cameras, pocket cameras, point and shoot cameras, they tend to stop at 10 to 15 minutes. This one goes continuously up to 30 minutes maximum, which is a lot. Now there are some cons, of course. Now the first con isn't really a big one, but I have to mention it. It records videos in MTS file format. As sharp and clear as they are, they're a little tricky to play at first. You can't take pictures or record a video while the camera is charging or plugged into the computer, which is another problem. And the flash is in an odd position, depending if you hold it like me, like this. And the last con, of course, is it's a little pricey. And it's about $300 for the HX20. And if you plan to buy the HX30, it's an additional $50 just for the Wi-Fi capability. I personally don't recommend the HX30. Spending extra $50 just for the Wi-Fi capability, I personally don't find it useful, but if you want to, go ahead. So that's my review. A superb camera. Definitely buy it for the 60 frames per second recording. It's outstanding. If you found this video useful, check out my website in the description below. Hit the like button, it does help. Subscribe, and thanks for watching.